I have zero concern for Sarah. She's fine. I mean, I kind of think we know who didn't do their jobs here. The only person that's really trying to save their skin by deflecting to other people
is Hannah.
Right? Not me. Not me.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Wanted to talk to you today about Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial. By the way, what happened to the second part of her last name? It seems to have disappeared. We seem to be calling her Hannah Gutierrez now. Is this the new trend? And I'm not going to talk about a lot of things that have gone on in court in the past couple of days, how I think the defense blew it and blew it big time. And they blew it with one question. But before I get into that, let's get into your questions and comments. Actually, more comments than questions, really, here. Rebel Doherty says, yes, Alec, someone is responsible. You are. You assumed the gun was empty. You will get fried at your trial. You have no guilt. You are a psychopath. A lot of comments like that. A lot of very comments saying this trial has no mystery. It's clear cut. Resonance 3486 says, Hannah is a young punk. Easy target to get all the blame, yet think it's this way. Would you arrest a medic for delivering a morphine to a patient when the vial was marked as insulin? I think Seth's headquarters are the issue here. That it's not a company is a crime scene. That is not a company, it's a crime scene. Excuse me. My fluffy 20, and we're going to get into Seth Kenney and his testimony today and his collaboration in this investigation. My fluffy 20 says, I remember an interview with Tina Fey from a while back when she said something along the lines of having to always make sure Alec Baldwin felt like he came up with every good idea on the set of 30 Rock. Can you imagine the ego? He must be a nightmare to work with. That's funny that you mentioned that, my fluffy. I read that they did that with Mae West, too. That's how writers got in their lines. They would say, oh, remember what you said the other day and how funny it was? And she would always remember, even though she never said it. It's something that the writers thought of. She would always take credit for it. And that's the way they got in their material. Funny that Alec, they used the same technique with Alec Baldwin and 30 Rock. And he was great on that show. He's great in comic roles, I think. Very rarely do you see an actor do drama and comedy so well. So he's unusual in that regard. But so how I'm feeling watching this, and I would say conflicted, and it brings up the issue. So we have an investigation that where Hannah Gutierrez is put in a cop car right away, and Alec Baldwin, not the same treatment. It doesn't matter in terms of her guilt. Did she do her job? No. So if you isolate it from how the investigation was done and who they charged and why doesn't really matter in this right now. But it certainly makes you feel like you can't really trust exactly the story you're being told. And the witnesses, each one seems to lie about something. And that's obviously up to the jury to decide which witness testimony they're going to believe and what they're going to disregard, But I'm watching it thinking to myself, did she fulfill her duty? No. Was she allowed to fulfill her duty? What was stopping her? Not being allowed in the church, so we're not sure how the gun got handed off. So Dave Halls testifies that Hannah gave Alec the gun directly, even though he's pled out in this case and retired. But under oath, he says Hannah gave the gun to Alec, which seems a little hard to believe since Alec and Hannah both say, no, Dave Halls gave him the gun. And it was cold gun. It was shouted cold gun, which means nothing's in it. Nothing should have been in it. Why was it loaded up at all? And why was Alec cocking the pistol? Because it didn't seem that shot didn't call for it, that they were practicing for. Called for a cross draw, but not yet. That came later. And now we have the idea that it's not important where this bullet came from. And the person that would most likely be the most likely source is really enmeshed in the investigation. So what I'm asking is, are there going to be jurors who say, look, sure, she didn't do her job, but I can't get on board this because I can't trust this investigation. Kind of a technical issue. I need to have more faith in the investigation and more faith in the honesty of the prosecution team, because here we have Sarah Zachary, and I know it sounds like I'm always, you sound like you're always passing up, but here's Sarah Zachary on the stand, who had her own accidental discharge the day before, threw away the bullets, and she says to investigators, I couldn't tell you why I did it. And then she says on the stand, well, I did it in a panic. And the state would like us to believe that she did that it could have been anything she could be throwing away. It could be a tissue. It could be something else. Doesn't matter. That it was one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case that she threw away. Well, she said, well, I did it in front of everybody. And an extremely chaotic time on an extremely chaotic set. And here she is, she's got immunity. And Hannah is being charged with tampering with evidence for handing off a small baggie of white powder to someone. And no one was, as far as I know, drug tested in this case. So what are we talking about here? How important was that to the investigation if you can't prove that she did it? And you're not going to charge her with possession. So I have some real conflicting feelings watching this. If I just tunnel vision it and leave it, it really reminds me a lot of Conrad Murray's trial, the Michael Jackson's doctor. Did Hannah perform up to the standard of care if she were a doctor, say, right? No. But you have Dave Halls testifying that he felt that the set was safe. And Alec Baldwin telling investigators, I played that last time we talked about this, that there was not an issue. And Seth Kenney really enmeshed. So I want to start with thank you, True Crime Circus. Excuse me. Hold on one sec. Sorry, I had to cough. True Crime Circus, they released this tape, and they released multiple tapes. Some are more visual, but this one, for some reason, more than any of the others, and he's putting things in his pocket as he's talking. Who knows what it is? Picking things up from the prop table, putting them in his pocket, talking in other videos. But in this one, he's talking about and really trying to convince the detective who should be charged. Did they cross the line of professionalism in this case? And does it even matter? That's what I'm asking, and I'd love a conversation. I'm very mutable in this case. I'm really haven't settled in any one direction. But this makes me uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with the investigation. That's the best way I can put it. And here's the call from, I played a little.
Concern for Sarah. She's fine.
So here's the call between Seth Kenney, the man who Hannah and Thel Reed, her father, got their, he says he only sells dummies, but he did supply other things to Thel. So did he have a incentive? And he keeps bragging about all the police officers he knows and all the connections he has to police officers, almost flirting with the detectives. It's so odd. I've never heard calls like this between potential suspects or potential witnesses even. And he really embedded himself with the investigation. We can look at his testimony, especially his cross, in a second, but here's a little of it.
I mean, I kind of think we know who didn't do their jobs here. The only.
I'm going to skip past this. Just skip past the
Well, Sarah was supposed to come in today.
Yeah, she told me about that. And I told her, I said, Sarah, you have zero concerns. You have no concerns at all. Okay? And I said, you know what? And I got this in text message with her. You can get a lawyer, but, to what end? I think she's looking for a security blanket, like it's going to make everything go away. It's not, right? So, because her culpability is like zero in my mind. Mm-hmm. As far as the industry goes, it's zero. I've got her jobs lined up like right now. Like people that are veterans of the industry, that are armorers, that are heading up certain teams are like, yep, I get it. Absolutely. Just.
Right. But when you have a charge for evidence tampering involved in this, I consider that a little bit more important than a small baggie of substance that are frequented on movie sets. Let me know if I've lost my mind. I may have lost my mind. Let me know. Let me know. Sadie Page, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Tuesday, thank you so much. Nice to see you here. Shari Davis, thank you so much. Just saying, if a SCOR whatever comes in after you start a victim impact letter, no need for any props till later episode. Think boyfriend should help on the chat side. Just saying, if a SCO, what's an F? I don't know what you mean. Oh, a super chat or whatever comes in and you start a victim. No need for any. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Thank you. So one time, so what Shari's referring to is is my boyfriend coming in one time and saying, you need to read a victim impact letter when I was talking about this case. And of course, there are none yet. We haven't gotten to the sentencing phase yet in this case. That's funny, Shari. Yeah, let me know how you're feeling. But it's very odd. And listen to the detective talk to him. I'm just going to play a little of this.
Send me her contact info, and she's good to go. They get it. They don't have to, plan to perfection and prove to, a court about XYZ. They just know how it works. They know that the prop master, right, relies on the armorer to do his or her job. That's it. It's really, really basic, honestly, for the most part. Other than the fact that there's campus bullying and all the rest of the stuff, which is a huge component of me saying, look, it's a really stressful environment. Your dad thought you were ready. You obviously weren't. Somebody died.
Right.
We get it. This
Right. And why is she in court? This is what I keep asking myself. If this were me, I'd just want to go. I would think I would want to go. I'd have so much guilt. It would be eating me up. I'd want to somehow make it better. And I really think that may be the best thing for Hannah, is to really go through that difficult experience. She seems really young for her age and not ready for life responsibilities, or not ready. Certainly she's never going to do this job again. That's over. And is it fair when they say she was saying, oh, my career's over? My dad used to talk about how, and I mentioned this last episode, everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So she's thinking about herself, and because her life has just changed in a moment. Is that human, or is that callousness? A little bit of both, right? But this is getting ridiculous. So when I said the defense blew it is when they had the caterer, part of that team, on the stand. So Hannah, she volunteered to spend time with Hannah, ends up cutting out early. And Hannah hands her this baggie of white substance. And the defense asked her if it could be protein powder. Come on. You blew it, defense. They got to trust you. The jury has to trust you. When you try to bamboozle them with stuff, lines like that, were they born yesterday? No. But you see that, and for the people saying, oh, there were so many producers, yes, credited, but it was clear that Alec Baldwin was running the show. He was the producer on set. He was the money person. He was the A-list star. He had the power, and he was acting like it. And he's pointing his gun around. But let's listen a little bit more. And so this detective starts going like she's talking to a friend.
Industry eats people alive, and it didn't eat you alive, but by your hand, it ate somebody else alive, and it's tragic. You've got to own this shit. So it's rough. It's a rough industry. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So anyway, without a doubt, if everything were lined up with the box and a half, and honestly, I don't know that this other person who may have done that a couple of years ago is all that worried. I feel bad for having connected the dots and gone, oh shit, I think I know how this happened and where it came from and who has more of that those same reloads. And even today,
he's going to tell the detective how it happened. He knows how it happens. He's going to tell him how it happened. And then in Cross, he suddenly gets poor memory. He didn't keep inventory. And to have the prosecutor say, doesn't matter where it came from, it's all a red herring. Yeah, in a way, she's right. Did Hannah do her job? No. No. No and no. But the way is there going to be a juror who feels a little like, I can't trust all this? I don't know. It's getting too weird for me. I've never seen a potential suspect witness have so much access, over 40 phone calls.
With the whole no.
So when I say over 40 phone calls, he called this detective over 40 times and is very casual, and she's very casual back. And so there's no real, and he already had a relationship with Sarah Zachary. She trained under him. So there was, could a juror see that this was a way to control the investigation, steer it away from him and away from Sarah and right on and dump it all on Hannah Gutierrez Reed? Certainly she should be charged with something. But there goes my logic, because it doesn't make her any less guilty, technically, because other people didn't get charged. But can you trust the way that this investigation went down? Can you trust the prosecutor? And the defense let us know with that one question that you can't trust them either. They're going to try to sell you a line of goods. That was crazy. That was so dumb. I just thought they blew it. They seemed pretty reasonable up to then, asking pretty reasonable questions within reason, but that was outrageous. And they got universally on social media panned for it, dragged, rightfully so. It was a dumb move.
Some of it's like, whatever Winchester
Better question to ask is, did anyone see her do it?
cases or whatever, I kind of like more definitely connected dots. Like, okay, this is a very odd thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
So, and I myself might have, and I'm not sure about the legality of it, I might actually have some spent brass that was left
This is a Crime Circus presentation
behind. So, not that it's going to have anybody involved's fingerprints or anything on there, but I don't know. And, if I located this stuff.
And 40 days before a search warrant, is that going to be enough? I don't know. He was even less impressive on the stand. And I thought they did a good job in Cross. Let's take a look at that. I put all the links. You can listen further. I just wanted to give you like a little flavor, how it went down. It's not explosive. It's just odd. Do you know what I mean? So this is the Cross here, and you can see the way he keeps things. He doesn't know when he made a giant trip to bring inventory. Find that hard to believe. Certainly his organization. I just did an episode on Wendy Adelson's banana bread story, and I was showing these amazing Orthodox women in their incredibly organized kitchen. Send them down to Seth Kenney's place because he seems to have no organization whatsoever, just really chaotic. And he recommended Hannah for the job. It's my understanding. Doesn't make it just not very professional for the detectives. He seemed to really be able to work his charm with them.
Cross-exam.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Kenney.
Good morning.
We've met over Zoom, but we've never officially met in person until this morning. Is that correct, sir?
It is.
Okay. Mr. Kenney, I want to walk you through, to start with, the 1883 set. And I think initially, Thel Reed had brought live rounds in a green ammo can. Is that correct?
That's correct. They were, and specifically they were reloads, yes.
And these were reloads, and some percentage of them were Starline brass reloads. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I would just guess a good percentage, roughly 50% of the cases were Starline.
Now, I think you described previously that there were three types of bullet characteristics within those reloads. Is that correct, sir?
That is.
And will you tell the jury what three types of reloads there were?
So again, if we consider that a round of ammunition has four components, and commonly people say bullets, in what they were referring to is a total cartridge, right? But the bullet is actually the projectile, that single component, which essentially is flying towards whatever target. And Thale had brought 45 Colt reloads that were made up roughly of almost equal thirds, you know, and it was a third what are called semi-wad cutters.
So what I'm saying is, when you have a trial where I feel almost every witness has almost every witness, I don't believe in one way, and we're relying on them to build this story, and then we have this figure who really was key in bringing these charges, or helping the investigators decide, are we going to get a hung jury? Most people say no. Most people say forget it. She's sunk. That's what I'm saying. And I see about maybe 30% of the people saying it's going to be a hung jury. This was not the slam. This started out, to my eye, a slam dunk case. And wait till we get to Alec Baldwin's phone calls. They are amazing. And he tells that same Stephanopoulos story. She was guiding me in the motions that ended her life. Give me a break. Give me a break, Alec. Give me a break. And then he's giving his driver directions. I don't know. He sounded like he was in Vermont, or we just bought a house, talking about the house he just bought in Vermont, and complaining that he wasn't included in the Kennedy Honors Gala. I believe that was what it was, with other great comedians, and dropping Tina Fey's name and really trying to use his celebrity status to sway the investigation.
The tip of that projectile is shaped exactly like a crayon. It has the exact shape of a newly unused crayon. Then there was another bullet profile, a truncated cone, which kind of has the spaceship look to it. And then there was the more common and typical found heavy grain bullet, which is, I think, probably what most people would assume is a bullet when they do that. And it just looks like a lump of clay. And it could be, there are slight variations to those shapes, but it can look like a human head, essentially, that was circular on all the way around the sphere.
Okay, kind of like a rounded kind of.
Yeah, and they even with a flat point on them, but they seem to be those round-nosed, flat point versions. All seem to be roughly the same. I didn't see any variations in those, but
And just another factor, this doesn't have to do with Hannah's guilt or innocence, something I find very shameful is that Alec Baldwin and co. are fighting paying that fine, which they were fined the largest fine possible by the state of New Mexico for an unsafe working conditions. And they're fighting it. But that's what you do when you have no guilt. Remember, he says he has no guilt. I mean, as I'm watching this, it's more and more like Pass the Potato. It's a song by Bob Dylan, Who Killed Davy Moore, where everyone passes the blame comes to mind. Is it our culture? So many people, so many things, and our culture of gun loving in America's been to blame. But Alec Baldwin insisted on having real guns on the set. And he claims that he only cocked the pistol halfway and his finger was never on the trigger. Because he never does that. It's like these narcissistic people cannot integrate their shadow side. So Alec Baldwin, the star, the one we love so much on SNL, he wouldn't put his finger on the trigger, but his shadow side sure would.
But honestly, I just don't recall. I just remember that there were 3 different type profiles. And the issue that we ran into was that they were shooting both lever action rifles and revolvers at the shooting range. And specifically, I grouped the each different bullet profile into separate boxes, and told the guys that were manning the prop master in a live fire armor that they had brought on, and they had an assistant as well, that the semi-wad cutters would not chamber in the lever action rifles. So best to use those in the revolvers, and ideally the truncated cone and then the rounded bullets, those could be used in the lever actions. And ultimately, somebody put a semi-wad cutter in one of the lever actions and jammed it up.
Okay, well, in any event, there's 3 types of bullet characteristics in those reloads that Thel Reed gets from Joe Swanson, correct?
That from what I saw, yes.
Okay. Now, you all have this live training offset. It's at a cowboy training camp in Texas in 1883, correct?
Correct. It was anywhere near a set. It was on, again, Taylor Sheridan had set up a private firing range, live fire area, and no filming was done at that point.
Okay, sir. Then after that set, you then retained the ammo can and the remainder of the live rounds that Thel had brought, correct?
No. I retained the Thel Reed, the reloads from Thel, but the ammo can was sent once the first I saw of what was the contents of the ammo can was actually at the firing range on Texas, and at that point we needed to know how many we had and what variety, because when I opened up the box, it was a jumbled, distribution of 3 different types of bullet profiles. So what I did is previously I'd gotten from Joe Swanson 10 boxes that were flat, brand new. They actually had to be assembled, and I loaded the contents from the green ammo box that Thel had brought into those white boxes. Those white boxes went up to the firing line as well as the empty ammo can. And the ammo can was being used for the spent brass.
Okay. So you did retain some of the reloaded live rounds after 1883 completed?
After the 1883 cowboy training camp, yes.
And those then made their way back to Albuquerque, you've said, to PDQ props, correct?
Yes.
And you don't know whether those returned, I think you've stated before October 21st. You said you were hazy on the date, right?
Yes.
But we do know that you came back to Albuquerque from 1883 on or about October 11th because you met with Sarah Zachary October 12th, correct?
Correct.
So when you came back, you brought dummy rounds from the set of 1883 to give to Sarah, correct?
Correct.
And those were 45 long Colt dummy rounds.
Correct.
Now, you had a whole group of dummies on 1883. How many do you think there were?
5,000.
Okay. So out of those 5,000, you brought some back from Miss Zachary. And at some point, you can't tell the jury when, those live rounds came back to your place.
I've never been able to identify the exact date.
Well, you also said on direct.
So many of these witnesses feel like defense witnesses. So many of these prosecution witnesses feel like defense witnesses once they're done. So you have the medic up there saying, well, I'm not suing because a bunch of ambulance chasing lawyers descended on everyone who was in the church that day, and I decided to get mine. She's up there saying, I went and I looked at my kids. I mean, I felt like she was putting on a performance. And she wanted to change things in the industry, not by changing different rules or laws. No, the only way to change things in the industry, how is your civil suit going to change things in the industry? I was so surprised she wasn't asked that. I mean, even they have one medic, and she's really her job is to distribute bug spray and sunscreen.
They were delivered back. Let me get you the words you used. They were offloaded from your Sprinter van and got moved back to Albuquerque in the bathroom. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, when you said got moved, isn't that you who moved them back?
Yes.
Okay. So, in reality, you drove them back from 1883, and you can't remember that date at all.
No, I ballpark it, but it's not accurate. I have an idea of within months or two, or even I can't tell you because I made at least 2 trips back and forth from Texas to Albuquerque, California, back again. I've just not been able to narrow it down.
Did you ever go back and when you were sitting down with Hancock on one of these times and sit down with the calendar and try to look at your trip receipts, look at any kind of credit card, try to figure that out?
Yes, repeatedly. I've probably tried 3 to 5 times to see if I can come up with a picture of either the space in PDQ space in Albuquerque, something that would indicate when I had brought those back. I've just been unable to.
Okay.
Well, he didn't need to because he was already in with the investigators. So why does he need to work that out? He doesn't need to work that out. He already told them he's cleared. Clear me, clear Sarah. It's all that armorer's fault. And it is. I mean, she needed to check. It was her job to check it. It's also Alec Baldwin's. There's a reason why they're both charged. But I mean, remind me never to go to New Mexico. That's how I feel watching this trial. I know these are Hollywood people, but just like, oh, darn it. Sorry, guys. My apologies. Hold on. Will we ever find our place again? Let's see.
Person. Until this morning. Is that correct, sir?
Did it?
Okay, we're right at the beginning here. All right, here we go.
That were made up roughly of almost equal thirds, and it was a third what are called semi-wad cutters. The tip of that projectile is shaped exactly like a crayon. It has the exact shape of a.
We already went through this, right? Here.
Thank you. Mr. Kenney, I'm going to show you defendant's L14, and if you could describe, is this a picture inside PDQ props?
It is.
Okay, sir, can you tell the jury these items, what type of firearms those are?
Well, they look to be long arms, obviously because of the length, but what's inside those gun socks is a mystery. It could be anything from replicas, non-functioning shotguns, could be anything.
So these were there on October 21st. Are you telling the jury you don't know what was inside those socks?
Definitely not. I have hundreds of guns.
Okay, are these hundreds of guns inside PDQ props?
Yeah, as well as replica and rubber as well. And replicas they look exactly like a gun, but they are not. And if that's not how do we know that's October 21st? First of all, that shouldn't be.
Not October 21st. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting my date. Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Okay.
This was the month after in November.
This is search warrant photos.
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was in November. And Mr. Kenney, what is this on the? Are these some rounds on the ground here?
Everything in this room are going to be blanks or dummy rounds.
Okay, but I see them kind of laying in bags on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, did you have any kind of? Oh, first of all, before I ask you that, you have a lot of boxes stacked up on the shelves here. Do you see that?
Yes, and that shelf holds entirely blanks.
Okay. Did you have any sort of written inventory system for all your boxes and?
Occasionally, I would go through and make a list of what I had. It was casual. You know, what do I need? You know, Joe Swanson would say, "Hey."
So big surprise. The man who trained Sarah, who clearly really didn't know what she was doing, and recommended Hannah, has a casual inventory system. Isn't that a big surprise? Right. Lisa, good point. How can this stuff be insured if he has no inventory system?
I'm running off a batch of 223 blanks and or 9mm, whatever it was, and if I was on the road, it would be helpful to kind of have an idea about that. But there's no spreadsheet of inventory that I kept.
Okay, and when you say casual, was it written on a piece of paper?
It was 8.5 by 11. I would end up with 2 or 3 8.5 by 11s, because it's not only, we're not just talking about 9mm, right? We're talking about 9mm that is going to be what we use in the industry, anything from a solid plug load. And in a solid plug load, you can have 10 variations. And then we have 8th flash, quarter flash, half flash, full flash. So you had to know what your inventory is by memory for the most part. And occasionally,
by memory? This reminds me of the one time when I had a really complicated assignment in school where you had to mark down what you were doing by the hour in a week. And so, you had to really keep a calendar of everything you did. You had to rate what you did and all this stuff. And the guy in my class says, I didn't write anything down for the week. I just remember it. I have it in my head. Yeah, right. I wrote it on my hand, guys. I wrote my inventory on my hand. Occasionally it got washed off, but that's just unfortunate. I'm just wondering about the maturity of the detective to let this guy, it just seemed like he was manipulating everyone.
If inventory got too high in one area, I'd say, well, definitely don't. If Joe says, hey, do you need any of this? Respond no, because it just doesn't make sense from a small business standpoint.
And you said inventory through memory. I'm going to show you defendant's L16. It's just one example. Were you able to remember at any given time each number of each of those types of boxes?
Well, if I'm handling it on a daily basis, yes. Deficiencies mostly.
Well, and for example, when you have to invoice, like the Russ said, do you have any procedure that kind of tells you how you're going to invoice that?
Typically what I'll do is very quickly, usually movie productions, television productions are last minute, and oftentimes the invoicing comes a week or two after the service has been provided. And so oftentimes I'll quickly jot down what it is that's being sent, take a picture of it, and oftentimes things go, if they're shipped, everything goes overnight. So it's a last minute kind of business.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach? I'll show this. Sir, I'm going to approach and show you defendants EE and FF, and I'll ask you if you recognize these two documents.
I do.
You need readers?
No, that's okay. Yep.
What are those documents?
This is an invoice.
My understanding is that he trained Sarah, and that Thel trained Hannah, but he recommended Hannah. Thanks, Shari. Welcome back, Miss Shorty. I'm so glad to see you. I heard you went to Kick. Mods rock. Thank you. Moderators, I really appreciate it. Although chat is very well behaved. Thank you, guys. Thank you for doing it. I appreciate it. And thank you, Shari, for the super chat. Thanks for watching along.
Russ Production with Sarah Zachary here as well.
And can you look in the back of the one you just looked at and see what the sticker number is on the back of the page? Just flip it over.
Yeah, Thel Reed is 81. He's just had a birthday last month.
Yeah, that little sticker, FF, does that say that?
That says FF. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just read for the record from FF, and what is EE? The other exhibit?
You haven't introduced these.
No, I was just going to ask to move them in, Your Honor. Just have them identify EE.
Okay. So FF is an invoice for blink ammunition as well as dummy rounds.
Okay, and is that your invoice, sir?
Yes, it is.
And is it the same for EE? If you could take a look at that.
And this EE is an invoice for guns, replicas, rubber guns, gun bags and socks.
Okay, and not get into the contents, you just recognize that, do you not?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
I would move for the admission of those two exhibits.
No objection. EE and FF are admitted. You may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Defendants.
So, Mr. Kenney, I'm first going to show you defendants EE, and you were just telling the jury, can you just summarize this and don't go into every item?
Sure. This is the gun, replica, and rubber invoice to the Russ Production from PDQ.
Mr. Bowles, hold the exhibit real quick. Can we approach one?
Yes.
So my understanding is today they had a gun expert and the judge was concerned that it might be loaded. My question is aren't there security checks, like airport checks? Every time I've been in court for the Maxwell trial or the Nexium trial, or Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, we have to go through airport security. And your shoes will go, my shoes always go off. We have to be wanded. I mean, wasn't he? I mean, is there any kind of those checks? But I also noticed that people have their cell phones in court and don't have to check
Okay,
them. So I guess New Mexico's like Florida that way.
Mr. Kenney, if you can just summarize that for the jury.
So that invoice is from PDQ to Rust Production for firearms, replica firearms, as well as rubber firearms.
Okay, and now I want to show you, and this is what you, and the one we just saw, this is what you supplied to Rust, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now I want to show you defendant's FF. And if you can summarize this document.
It's a
So Romaine LA says, I found Seth Kenney very suspicious from day one. Alec Baldwin fired the gun, but I think Seth knows how the live rounds made their way onto the set. Obviously, I mean, he obviously has some kind of inventory that he doesn't want them to look at. How are those things produced? He has to use some kind of system. You'd be a fool not to in this day and age. What is he? Some kind of neo-Luddite that doesn't like to use computers? What did he type those up on his electric typewriter? They say that the jurors are taking notes, really paying attention. And I'm just so curious the way this is going to go. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the jury room. It was her job to check. She didn't do it, fell short. That's clear. But how they're going to go on that, tampering with evidence charge is anyone's guess.
invoice from PDQ to Rust Production for blank ammunition, as well as dummy rounds.
Okay, and then if I want to show you the second page of that. And what does that say on the second page?
It says dummy rounds, 4440/45 LC long Colt and 12 gauge.
So is this the line where you invoiced for those 45 long Colt rounds?
It is.
Okay. And so you put this together in a group with the other types, correct?
Yes.
And the numbers on the left column, so you start at your dummy rounds, 44, 40, 45, then there's a number 200. Is that the quantity?
That is the quantity.
And then the price per item is right next to that, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now these dummy 45 and other dummies, did you rent these to Rust?
I did. What was listed there is not inclusive of actually what was provided to set. There were some, as I recall, there were some 44 Henry dummy rounds, possibly some 4570. I don't recall exactly.
So were there other invoices?
No.
Okay. So there were certain items that you did not invoice for.
That's correct.
Okay. And did that also include what's called primed cases?
No, prime cases would not be in the dummy round line of the invoice. That would be listed out separately, because one is a consumable, the other one is a rental, and prime cases would be a consumable.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, but you provided Sarah Zachary some primed cases for Rust, correct?
Not that I recall. I mean, I'd have to look at the invoice.
Okay. What is a primed case?
A prime case is simply that. It's a ammunition case that has a primer without gunpowder, S- Typically, Joe Swanson crimps the end because what happens is that they're too long. If he doesn't crimp the end, they're too longer to actually be functional in a revolver. And they're simply, like a loud cap gun when they go off. They're good for training. They're good for around horses and kids. And certain armorers will rig them up in theater as well. Live theater will use them with talcum powder for an effect with minimal noise and also for close proximity.
Do you recall telling Detective Hancock when you interviewed with her that you had given a number of prime cases to Sarah, and it will be interesting to see what color primers they have?
No, I don't recall that.
If I showed you your interview transcript, would that refresh?
It would help, yeah.
It's page 32.
So very different affect. I can't show you everything. So I am not going to show you today's stuff. They started late and I had to prepare. But a lot of people from OSHA and a gun expert. I didn't think it was the worst defense I've ever seen, not the best. I did keep an eye on it, but I could not prepare for 2 shows and watch all of it today. So I think this would be a very hard case to defend. But I've wondered.
Did you indeed tell Detective Hancock that you had given a number of primed cases to Sarah?
Well, it's interesting because it says prime cases, and that I would have said primed. I never say prime cases. It just sounds like you're ordering some off of Amazon. So I don't recall that conversation. I don't even know what I'm referring to in that conversation.
Well, do you recall that there was discussion about those being there and that you looked for a picture to show Hancock?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall stating that chances are they'll all have the same color primer?
This conversation, I just don't remember the particulars of this conversation with Detective Hancock.
But do you recall at all, regardless of the conversation, that Sarah Zachary had primed cases on the set of Rust?
If they're on the invoice and it's a dummy, or excuse me, it's a blank round, and I would include a primed case in a blank round invoice, because again, it's a consumable. I would not be surprised if they got primed case blanks, let's call them.
Well, sir, don't you know that? Don't you know you provided that to Sarah Zachary?
No, it was
What else could it be? So could it be a problem in the transcript between the transcriber heard primed and wrote prime? Don't you think? Could it be what else could it be? And doesn't it look rather convenient for him to just say, I don't remember? And then you can't really ask someone any questions. Just watching Wendy Adelson's testimonies like this, you can't really go into the particulars with someone who doesn't remember. And there's no crime for having a bad memory, but there's certainly crime for perjuring yourself, especially when you're getting to some inconvenient facts. All this has nothing to do with whether Hannah did her job. However, again, can you trust the witnesses? Can you trust that the story has been built on the stories of the stories that the witnesses told? And when there's someone in there steering the investigation with very young detectives, he looks like he has a lot of influence. She's telling him at the end of one of the phone call I just played that she's only going to get 1 day of sleep. Like she's sharing, it's getting very casual between them because, of course, he made over 40 calls to her. Could Hannah get off on a technicality? Just like, I can't trust any of this. She didn't do her job, but no, it's basically what you're doing in that case. And I'd love to hear the jury. I'm really curious to hear how the jury is going to be instructed. I'm going to pay really close attention to that by the judge before they go into deliberations.
Over 2.5 years ago?
But this was traumatic event for everybody. You talked to, you remember that, don't you?
I remember it being traumatic, yes,
you
absolutely.
You remember providing those cases because you discuss it for 5 pages in this.
No, I don't remember.
Do you recall during this conversation as well that you called a man named Troy Teskey?
I've called Troy Teskey a number of times in the last 6 years.
I'm asking you specifically, during the interview with Detective Hancock, November 1st, do you recall that you called Troy?
All right, I think I've proved my case that he's sketchy. Sketchy and hard to believe. I'm going to get to one last thing. I have a lot to say about this. I'm going to get to one last thing before I go. I don't want to thank you all for watching this with me and tuning in. I appreciate it. Hold on 1 second. Let me just pull this up. I always have way more stuff prepared than I ever show. Unfortunately, I have the time to. I should go on Kick. I should go on Kick. I'd be there 24 hours showing everything I want to show. Here it is. Listen to these. These are wild. These are Alec Baldwin's phone calls. Check these out.
So much more of this I can take. Where people are saying, I'm a murderer and I killed this woman.
Right.
That's not helping me.
Yeah, so
I'm not a murderer. I'm not a murderer.
Right. It's not helping him. That he ended a woman's life isn't helpful to him. He's shocked to find that out.
Absolutely.
So again, we have the same detective with much smaller lips than we saw in court, and very interesting call by Alec Baldwin, or calls better. And this is, of course, from True Crime Circus. Thank you so much for getting these, and the link is in the description of this video.
Yes. Right. So, and we're still in the process with everything. Obviously, we'd like to conduct secondary interviews with everyone since we've kind of had some time for a few days now. So, yes, we would like to do secondary interviews with everyone.
And they want to do that how?
So it's really up to you. Obviously, we can travel.
Who's the person that conducts the interview?
I do.
And you want to do that? Well, how do you best do that? Face to face, or you can do it by Zoom, or what do you want to do?
I would prefer face to face, but if it's easier for you, then we can do it over the phone. But yeah, I would prefer face to face.
I would probably do it, by Zoom or by phone, because we're here with our 6 kids.
Yeah.
And so leaving I left to come and shoot the movie, and that was the time that we had made arrangements for that time to be allocated that way. But now it's all it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, and I don't really want to do anything over Zoom because it's not secured.
Right.
So I don't want, someone on Zoom
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Just going to give my wife some directions. So,
Oh, he's giving his wife directions. His wife is driving. You sure you don't want to give those in Spanish, Alec Baldwin? I need to stay in Vermont to grow my burgeoning coat. Hey, Mona says, funny. Hey, Mona. Yeah, he's got 7 kids. Now he loves to drop that in. It's like, you can trust me. I'm a dad. I'm not only just an incredible movie actor. I'm a podcaster, the voice of the Met Opera, and a father, most of all. I'm with my kids.
9 miles, you're going to make a right at 7A. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would just prefer not to do anything over Zoom because you never know who can hack into Zoom at any point.
Yes, okay. So you want to do it as a regular phone call?
Yeah, Kathy Scalise says, Roberta, I don't believe anybody who testified. They're all so sus. And this is all new for me because this is a victim-centered channel, podcast. I want to see Helena's family get justice, but I also would like to see I'm just concerned about the process. It's like I don't know what you call it. And how this case was built is a little odd to me.
Yeah, we can do, like I said, we can do phone call or in person.
Yeah, well, in person for me to come there would be difficult. I'm just saying, what's best is if phone is an option. Let's do it over the phone. Would be better for me, actually.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. I need some time to interview these girls first.
Yeah.
I don't really have a ton of questions for you right now.
Right, no, I understand. Listen, I'm somebody who, I don't expect your department to go on TV and say, we're going to exonerate Alec Baldwin.
Right.
But everywhere you go, people are like, you make quiet. You should have checked the gun. You should have checked it on. I'm like, well, no, actually, that's not how my business works. They have a person there who they are the person that checks the gun. That's what they're paid to do.
Yeah. And
when Hannah apparently is in the press with her lawyer saying, I have no idea where these live rounds came from, I'm going to go, oh, really?
Yeah, and we actually had no idea that she was going to do that.
Right. I have no idea, she said, where the rounds came from.
Well, now she's suing Seth Kenney. So now she's gotten an idea.
And I was asking them for more safety training. That's a lie. That's a lie. I talked to the producers. That's a lie. She wasn't sitting there going, oh, please, I need more safety training.
Mm-hmm.
She walked around and said, my father was a legendary armorer. My father's this famous armorer, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm so happy to be in the family business. She didn't, hold on 1 second, please. I'm trying to get my way. 1 mile, you're going to make a left on 313 West. Anyway, I don't want to put Kate to death with this now. I'm not saying she was cocky, but she walked around. She certainly wasn't asking. She certainly wasn't wide-eyed and asking people for, when's my next safety meeting? On the contrary, she wanted you to know she had everything under control, and she was her father's daughter.
Okay.
There was no alarms being rung about safety and this and that. This guy.
Really? So is that a direct quote? My father's a famous armorer and I'm happy to be in the family business? Or is that why you hired her? Because some of the shine of her father rubbed off and she was the best you could get in the budget that you had. Sounds like some projection from Alec Baldwin to me.
By the way, who you read about in the paper, and I know that you dismiss most of what you read in the paper, but that guy who said, I'm an armorer, and they approached me about the job, and I turned it down. He was in the LA Times because it was an accident waiting to happen. The producer told me they called him, left a voicemail message for him, and he never returned their phone call. So the idea that there was some exchange with them, that's a lie. And the reason he wasn't hired was because his package was too expensive. But let me tell you something that I'm desperate for you to tell your bosses there, and that is every movie seeks to save money. Steven Spielberg seeks to save money. Tom Cruise seeks to save money. The idea that we did things on a budget and sought to save money, that puts us in league with every other movie being made today in the world. We did not have some unusual cost-cutting procedure, not at all. We had a budget that was of its size. Everybody knew what they were doing. They knew how much you could spend in each department. They negotiate with people. But the idea that we cut corners to save money, that's a lie. That's a lie. Each one of these people, remember, it's urgent that you tell Mendoza and those people there that each one of these people was approved by their union. SAG for the actors, DGA for halls, IATSE.
Alec Baldwin cannot take any criticism. Even if he knows, so say that was totally true, the story he told about the armor turned the project down. Couldn't possibly be that he asked around about the people that were involved. And how Alec Baldwin, there's stories about Alec Baldwin on other sets floating around. Are they true? They're all rumors at this point. But certainly the dailies make you think it could be true that he put a gun to someone's head on another set and they told the armor to lock the guns down. Shouldn't they been locked out already? I don't know. I don't even know. But keep it away from Alec Baldwin. He certainly likes pointing with the gun. The crew was very close. He's telling everyone to rush. But everything he does is great. He can't take the slightest criticism. So even if so let's just imagine everything he just said was true. And that guy was like just too expensive and made up a story to tell the press. I didn't want to do it because it was a disaster waiting to happen. Meaning, I'm going to brag that I had foresight and I have really good intuition. Fine. Let him talk. Let him talk. But everything, it's not, I mean, that bothers him more than the fact that he took a life. He's calling his wife saying, come down. We're going to have a great time. It's all paid for. Now, he didn't know Helena Hutchins was dead yet. He hadn't been told. But he knew she was air vac'd. Knew that much. He knew it was serious enough to be air vac'd. And he knew, according to his interview, that he knew that he also likes to blame the EMTs that they didn't come fast enough. So he knew that it didn't come fast enough and it was a very touch and go situation. He's telling his wife, come down. It's all paid for. Bring the kids. And what he's most sad about is that his daughter didn't have her big scene.
For Gutierrez, not one of them came to us and said, well, we have a red flag on them. Nobody. Every single one of them was approved by their union to show up and go to work. Okay?
Okay.
All right, let me know when you want to talk because I'm desperate to do this thing next round because, I mean, there's only so much more of this I can take where people are saying, I'm a murderer and I killed this woman.
Right.
That's not helping me.
Yeah, so I'm
not a murderer.
And most of our, the majority of our questions are coming down to Hannah and.
You are the definition of a killer. Someone who's taken someone's life, whether you did it intentionally or by accident. That is the definition. And let me see if I can bring this up. I didn't realize I had this loaded in last time. He was pondering this in 2017. What a weird coincidence, isn't it? Alec Baldwin, 2017 tweet. Tweet, wondering how it must feel to wrongfully kill someone, is being reshared.
Sarah and David. So that's why, I haven't really reached out to you because there's not a whole lot that I would say, that is a gray area that I have with you.
Do you have a gray area with me?
No, I'm saying that I don't have. That's why I don't have any questions for you as of yet.
Listen, you obviously have a job to do. I have faith in you guys. You have a system you have to go by. You have to leave the net as wide as open. The other thing is she says to the press, her lawyer said, she locked the guns away. They neglected to say she left the ammo out. Sarah Zachary told me that.
Right.
They left the ammo on the cart during lunch.
And I believe that's in mine, or I mean, at least like in my interviews that's being said. I'm trying to keep, I try to release the minimal amount in order to get what I need. So of course not every single detail is going to be released because the media is being hounds, and the less that I can give to get my job done, the happier I'm with. But I will.
Katie Girl says he's so condescending to people. You have no idea. Wait till you hear the end of this. I don't know if you've heard this before, Katie Girl. But wait till you hear the end of this where he starts talking about her job. I think it comes a little bit, I'm not sure. Maybe it's not all the way at the end, but let's get through this. It's hard enough to listen to Alec Baldwin. He starts talking about how she has a hard job, but she's not in the business and can't know. See, she's not among the elite in the movie business. Very much like The Devil Wears Prada. A lot of people in the movie business, and I feel Alec Baldwin is one of them, who thinks everybody wants to be part of it. Everyone envies them. They have the most glamorous, sexy jobs, and everyone's envious. And no one would want her job as a detective with her low pay and long hours.
I'll tell you that at some point, obviously, that we sent the firearm to the FBI crime lab for testing and ballistics, and then they're either going to do DNA and fingerprints or both. Obviously, we know who handled the gun. It's not a question at whose hands were on that gun, and probably more than just the 3-4 of you that handled it. Obviously, directors handled it. There was a lot of people handling these weapons on set.
Mostly the three ones in the chain of title, I would say, are Hannah to Halls to me.
Right, and I believe Sarah pulled them in.
I mean, again, I don't mean to tell you your business, but an important question for Halls is, why did you take the gun off the cart and hand it to Alec when Alec's testimony is that 99% of the time Hannah would present him with the gun? He may hand you the gun when they're done. Hannah would hand me the gun, and after we're done with the scene, whether there was shooting involved or not, I have been trained as an actor to hand the gun off to the prop master or armorer. That's a new phrase for me. I haven't heard that phrase in a while. The prop master or the first AD. That's what I was trained to do. The minute they say cut, you hand off the gun.
Okay.
You are expected as the actor to hand the gun to one of those two people the moment they say cut.
Right.
Now, very often, as I said to you,
He's got that weird stuttering right at a sensitive spot. Handing off the gun, that's something that people said he didn't like to do. He liked to walk around with it, and that actors were walking around with the firearms on the set. He certainly seemed to love holding on to those guns and pointing with them and firing off things, doing things that weren't in the script, cocking the gun. So for me, she asked him about his position, his hand position on the gun, and it gets really interesting.
It would be further away from the set because of the sight lines with the camera. She would hand me the gun. And sometimes she'd say, "This gun is hot. There's a round in there. We're going to shoot in this take." And I would always keep the gun pointed down. We all knew what we were doing. And then when the scene was over, even if we didn't shoot, I'd hand Halls the gun because Hannah was a little bit further away. Why did Halls take the gun off the cart and hand me the gun? Why in that instance? Why? And he must have a reason why. Why?
Did you see him take it off the cart?
I'm told the other women told me he took it off. I think he said he took it off the cart.
Okay.
I think he testified that he took it off the cart, but all I know is that it's very rare that Halls hands me the gun on the set, and this time he did. He handed me the gun.
Okay.
He said, "We have a..."
There's another guy I don't trust testimony. I don't trust Dave Halls, who said that now he's changed his story. Hannah gave Alec the gun directly, and he's the only one who says that.
Cold gun on set and handed me the gun. I thought to myself, oh, okay. I thought, is he in that much of a hurry? Or did Hannah pass him off the gun because the set was crowded? Sometimes people will behave a certain way because the set is crowded. It's a cramped space. There's wires, cables, boxes, generators, cameras. The camera has primacy and the crew has primacy, so everybody moves around them. So sometimes Hannah might hand Halls the gun because she can't fit into the room. There's no room. And then we were in that church, but I don't think the church was that cramped. But I'm just curious to ask someone to ask Halls, why did you pass the gun on to Alec? Why not Hannah this time? Why? That's rare. That's very rare.
Was Hannah ever inside that church after lunch?
I don't recall that. I don't recall. I don't think so. I don't recall.
Okay.
Now it's not the pandemic rules. Now it is that she couldn't fit in, and then he corrects himself and says, well, the church was pretty big. So he catches himself in a fib there.
I don't recall seeing Hannah. I just recall me sitting there thinking about what I had to do. Hold on one second. I gotta see where I'm going. You're gonna make a left on Lathrop in 1/8 of a mile. I'm with my wife and we're driving around with our kid to get some fresh air. But I just think that's an important question for you, Mendoza, your whole outfit there, which is, why did you hand him the gun this time? Why? When Alec will testify that 99% of the time, Hannah presented him with the gun. Okay. You may relieve him of the gun, but why did you hand him the gun at that time?
Okay.
And the other question, of course, for Hannah is, did you leave the ammunition on the cart unattended during lunch?
Right. And that, I mean, we've already, kind of gone over that with her and everything, and Sarah. I will let you know that at some point we are going to have to get DNA and fingerprints from everyone that was involved at that time, because we have to,
to eliminate the people that are,
Well, it's not even to eliminate the people, it's to more confirm, and of course, like by statements, we know that was the gun that was used, but we have to have lab results saying, yes.
Oh, no, I understand. When I say eliminate, I mean, then you sit there and go, well, we know those are Alec's prints. We know those are Hannah. So that way, if you find a fifth unknown set of prints, that becomes a question.
Right.
But as I said to you before, I mean, and again, I've heard, if there's one thing I found distressing, is the conflict between, did she take the guns and go shooting with her friends or not? Yeah. Some people say yes, some people say no. And she has said no, and I'm like, well, I'm just very concerned about that, because that might be, in order for her to be merely negligent, that might have been the opportunity for her to accidentally commingle the live rounds with the prop rounds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
right.
When you want to instruct me as to how to provide you with the DNA and the fingerprints, where I would go to do that in my area, tell me, and I'll go do whatever you want me to do. I'm going to be in New York probably at the end of next week, okay?
At the end of next week? Okay, let me see if I can reach out to, do you know what
I'm in Vermont now, so if you want me to find a place here, is there a state police office here I can go to? We're in Vermont indefinitely. I'm thinking we might go back next Friday. We don't know. We really don't know, because the press has really been very unpleasant here. Oh. Chasing my wife and I around in a car, really aggressive, causing, they're behind us.
They're aggressive. Have you guys seen the interview? I think I showed it a while back. Go back to my other Baldwin episodes. Go to that Vermont interview. Just type in Vermont interview. They are the ones being aggressive. His wife is photographing the press with her cell phone like a Scientologist, like they do to their critics. It's bizarre. It's so much projection.
Now, they're so aggressive, they're going to cause a car accident. It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm not Princess Diana, but it does smack of that in terms of they just never let up.
Yeah.
Oh, he isn't Princess Diana, but it does remind him of it. Never mind the woman whose life he took. Forget her. Forget her kid. Never grow up without a mother. That's never going to change. How do people get like that? I mean, are they born like that? I guess they're born like this. It's bizarre to me.
They haven't let up here either. We still have rows and rows of crews outside. So, but yeah, let me try to just facilitate and see.
I can tell you right now, if you want to write this down, I'm in Manchester, Vermont. In lower Vermont, in southern Vermont. I'm in Manchester.
Okay.
And, hold on, where's that? We're in Manchester, Vermont, and we're in Manchester, Vermont, and we're going to be here indefinitely. If there's something you want me to do DNA-wise or fingerprint-wise, let me know, okay?
Okay, so let me just see if we can facilitate doing that out of state, and then and having them just send it to us, or it might be, we might be able to go out there.
Okay, you tell me. And you tell me when you want to do the next round of questions, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
All right, thank you, Matt. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
I'm calling you because I thought, and again, I'm working very hard to get this right in terms of, I know what you can say and what you can't say, but what I'm wondering is when they claim that they think this is sabotage and somebody else put the bullet either in the box of bullets or in the gun, I haven't really looked at it that carefully. Is that something you guys are leaving open as a possibility?
We're leaving it really, everything open as a possibility, but, I think we have only gotten an interview with one cameraman at this point. So we're trying to set up additional interviews with these other guys that had walked off. But, I would say that statement's a little bit out of left field.
But it's her lawyer saying that on her behalf.
Right.
I find that wild to me. I can't even believe that.
Well, everybody's got a point somewhere other than their client. That's a lawyer's job.
Right.
So it's at the end of the day, it's their job to protect their client.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the sabotage, I know you had stated that you couldn't see the camera crew planting live ammunition.
That I thought that anybody would do that to address their grievances about the show. But I really don't know. All I know is that, and again, I'm not asking you to repeat to me what Hannah said in her one and only interview. I know you mentioned she only sat down with you the night. She won't come back and do it again, correct?
Well, that's dependent on her lawyers, so it's still up in the air at this point. However, the statement that she's provided to me and the statement that her lawyers have put out to the media are different.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm just saying that for us, everybody on our end, everybody in the crew, everybody expressed a real obsession, and the word obsession, to find out what happened here. They're all saying to themselves, she loaded the gun. That's her job. Halls does not load the gun. He does not. So
right.
She loads.
But, he did claim that he is supposed to check them, or did check it, or didn't check it to the ability that he should be, and, he handed you that weapon.
But no, I'm separating the two. I'm saying she loaded the gun, and he's the last line of defense. He doesn't check the gun. Now, here's an inconsistency in what Hall said that I find funny. He said, when I checked the gun, I saw, and I can't speak to this, he saw whatever it is he saw in the gun. 2 rounds, 3 rounds, he thought he saw, but then he announced cold gun on the scene. Those two things conflict.
So they don't ever use that term for dummies, right?
No, cold gun is an empty gun.
Okay.
Cold gun is an empty, or he's inspected them that they're dummies with no charges. They're just cosmetic. Again, so you can see into the cylinder. You can see there's some material there, and they've got no charges to them whatsoever. That could be termed cold gun, which would have forced him to have examined every bullet that was in there that it had no charge. It had the hole punched into the. You've seen the rounds that have the hole drilled into the casing.
Yes.
And that's a dummy round. There's nothing. They put the beads in. You can rattle them, but if he says cold gun, it's one or the other. It's cosmetic rounds with no charge, or usually nothing.
Okay.
But what he's saying, the minute you say cold gun on set, you're telling everybody in that room there's nothing to worry about. Which is why, in my mind, he stood right in front of me while we composed that shot. She believed it was a cold gun. There was nothing threatening her. There was no potential for anything to go, let alone a live round.
Right.
Okay, so this is my time to share. I'm just going to pull this just for a second. Pull this because I've heard some comments that Alec Baldwin had no experience. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. My apologies. Please hold, guys. Just want to show you quickly this article. And lessons unlearned. Alec Baldwin's father was a riflery coach at high school. Baldwin's possible familiarity with fundamentals of firearm safety could be relevant to his potential civil or criminal liability, but it's not determinative, says legal scholar, commenter Jonathan Turley. Actor Alec Baldwin, a gun control activist who accidentally shot and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins and injured director Joel Souza with a live round from a gun during the filming of Rust, is the son of a high school riflery coach. Baldwin's father, Alexander Ray Baldwin Jr. Ray is also Alec Baldwin's middle name. Died at the age of 55 in 1983, was an expert marksman in riflery who was honorably discharged from the U.S. Marine Corps. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this short, but you can tell when he talks about all the different aspects of the rounds and the guns, he knows what he's talking about, and he knows what gun safety is. And he will say that he had, you'll hear when he talks about his hand position on the gun. He just, in my opinion, is not telling the truth here.
Well, I mean, it's not, and of course, she's not in any of the handling process.
And when Hannah says, or her lawyer says, maybe somebody sabotaged them, I'm like, well, you put the rounds in the gun. No one else loads the gun. No one. Not to my knowledge, Sarah Zachary or the other girl. I mean, I was told that for me, she loaded the gun every time.
That Hannah did.
And is it fair to say that baggie was relevant evidence when no one was tested? So it's only evidence for Hannah, not for Alec Baldwin? Let me know what you think. I'm really curious. Please leave me a comment. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. I'm very mutable. I can move. My opinion can be moved either way. I'm just kind of in the middle here. A little bit. Not sure. So it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Yes, Hannah didn't do her job. But can this all be trusted? The way that this was put together feels very sus to me.
Hannah's the one that loads the gun every time.
Okay.
So.
And it never went back to, after lunch, it never went back to Hannah.
I don't know who took the gun from me after lunch. Probably Hannah. Meaning that we're rehearsing. I probably gave Hannah the gun after lunch because there was no need for vacate the sets. Halls is the one that strips me of the gun when they say cut if the set is crowded. if the camera moves on a track from one side of the room to the other, if there's anything that forces us to limit the number of people in the space itself. Reflections.
But he's the one, Dave is the one that handed you the gun.
So the dailies do not bear this out. The dailies show actors walking around with their props, firearms.
And after lunch.
Yes. He's the one who said cold gun on set and handed me the gun.
And then the gun stayed on you the entire time.
The gun was in my holster the entire time. Then I began the process with Helena of composing that shot. She'd say, raise the gun up, hold it a little lower, okay, right there to the right. She's telling me what to do.
Yeah. For her purpose. And then, but that's what I'm saying,
no one says that this was happening.
There's no time in between when Dave handed you that gun to when it went off.
Never.
That it went back.
I wouldn't hand the gun. I never in my life would hand the gun to someone other than Hannah or Holmes.
Okay.
My training is that when the moment they say cut on a rehearsal, you can say cut on a rehearsal. They'll say the phrase cut on rehearsal. So everybody's quiet and everyone's focused. Everyone's doing their jobs while we rehearse. And then to say cut on rehearsal means we're stopping to rehearse. And I only give the gun to one of the people, only, not to anybody else. Nobody.
Okay.
So from the time that Halls handed me the gun to the time the gun was taken away when the incident happened, I've done the entire time.
Okay. Do you remember who dressed you with your belt? Like the gun or the holster?
Usually it's all three of the prop women, like Hannah would get down and she would tie the sheath around my thigh. We would then she'd have someone hand her the knife. What's the girl's, the other girl's name? Nicole?
Yeah.
So Nicole would maybe hand her the knife. They put the Sarah and Nicole would help me put the holster on. And Hannah would tie that down because it had to be tied down a certain way to draw the holster. The holster was not the holster I wanted, and we had some issue. Nothing unpleasant, but I was very disappointed that they didn't fit that holster the way I wanted it to. So that gun, for the very purposes of these shots, insert shots of the gun being drawn quickly. You don't want to look like you're fumbling.
Mm-hmm.
I want the holster rigged a certain way. It was not cut or manufactured that way. So we had to tie.
So it's the holster's fault now. Isn't it interesting how many times he says Hannah's name and he never says Helena's name? Rarely. So it's her, she. Really speaks to if statement analysis has any validity at all. It's called an improper introduction, I believe. And it speaks to some tension between them.
If we didn't tie it in place, it would start to kind of loop around and my body would kind of manipulate. It would start to go under my armpits.
Okay.
And I needed the gun to come all the way around the holster part, all the way around to my
This is a crime circus presentation.
My sternum area, or as close as we could get, like right below my pectoral muscle. There would be the gun for me to draw it quickly, and we had to tie that down to accommodate that.
Do you remember if they told you
right under my pectoral muscle? What a way to talk. Such a incredibly dramatic way to talk, Alec Baldwin. Very fast, sometimes very fast, and then other times very slow. That's how Alec Baldwin talks.
when you guys were rehearsing, did they tell you the sequence that how you were, or what was to be expected when you were gonna shoot the gun? Because it's my understanding you're about to get in a gunfight, pretty much. With
the two guys in front of me, Ackles was in front of me, camera right to my left. When we rehearsed, And those two guys have a gun on me, and I look like I'm slumped in a chair like I might be dying in a pew where I was seated when the event happened. And in the scene, they would, of course, have all those, because you cut to them for their angle, you cut to me for my angle. And in my angle, they wouldn't be there. They would all be camera left. They'd be gone. I would just be pretending Echo there, and I would pull. And he said, you're going to slowly pull this gun out, and the minute you hear some gunfighting outside, they're going to be distracted. You finish pulling your gun, shoot. Or you shoot one of them.
Okay.
And this begins where my stunt double dives out the window. He jumps out the window. All this Western stunt craziness.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the sequence of you is to pull it out and shoot, pretty much.
The sequence was to pull it out and shoot, but no one made any mention, and normally they do, that in this angle we were rehearsing when the gun went off, that there would be any shooting in that angle. I don't recall them saying that. They almost always tell you, I always say.
Right. That's an important point. There was no need for him to practice, to pull back. Right? To pull back, to pull it back before, regardless of how his finger was. But he's shown more feeling about this holster than taking a mother away from her son and a wife away from her husband and all the people that loved her. By the way, I'll try to include it in the description of this episode as soon as I'm done. There is a fund that for cinematography in Helena's name that you can contribute to.
Will we fire the gun in this shot? That's a critical difference. They'll tell you that. So they tell the crew that so nobody's surprised. Sometimes you'll draw the gun out for an angle, and they're photographed, and you don't fire the gun. And I don't recall whether they said we would or wouldn't be firing the gun. And so when he said cold gun on set, and I pulled that gun out, and she was guiding me where to aim the gun. Then I said, do you want me to lower the gun low enough for you to see the cocking of the gun? She said, yes. I said, can we get that in this angle? She said, yes. And as I had the gun in my hand, and she'd been directing me where to point the gun, I pulled the hammer back. And as I said to you before, I never cock a gun, an empty gun, and fire because it can do damage to the pin. You're always told, don't damage a production gun. This is somebody's property. You squeeze the trigger maybe with the hammer in your thumb and guide it back slowly. You never pull the trigger on an empty gun. Never. And I never have. So then you took the gun and I cock it back. I've told you this before. I cock it back and I said, can you see that? She said, yes. And I don't want to go all the way back and cock it. I just pulled it 3/4 of the way. I said, can you see that? That's okay? She said, yes. Then I let go.
Hey, Pepper. Thanks so much. So nice to see you here. Hi, Roberta. How do I become a member? I'm going to ask, is Miss Shorty, can you give directions? Loves you, rockin' cast. Thank you. Oh, that's so kind. Thanks a lot. Listen to this, though. Listen, I would never do what I just did. And this is complete fiction. He was in no conversation with Helena at the time. Everyone says Helena was in conversation with her crew. And Alec Baldwin, my understanding is Alec Baldwin had just finished up a conversation with Dave Halls. Miss Shorty. Oh, thanks so much. Can you give some directions to Pepper? No problem. To how to become a member? Thanks so much. If you have time. Okay, thank you. I think it's a little different if you're on mobile or not. I believe so. It's in a little different spot.
Of the hammer. And that's when the gun went off.
Okay.
I mean, she was, I mean, in a way, what sickens me the most is she was guiding me through the very motions that wound up costing her her life.
Mm-hmm. But they never tell you guys to keep your finger off the trigger.
So it's Hannah's fault, Helena's fault. The holster wasn't right, or he wouldn't have to be doing that motion. I think that's what we're supposed to intuit from what he just said, or infer is a better word.
Well, I never have my...
It's just an endless, I mean, it's really funny to me that he plays Trump, because they're both such cartoons of narcissism. Trump and Baldwin, you know what I mean? Perfect.
Finger on the trigger, never. I never cocked the gun, and I never cocked the gun all the way and pulled the trigger to advance the hammer, because I was told that could. It's a subtle process, but I was always told years ago that could damage the gun.
Right, so, but your finger was in the on the trigger during your rehearsal.
It may have been to show her the shot, because in the shot it would be. The idea of carrying a gun and having your finger off the trigger, I don't know what they call that loop that goes around, that metal loop that goes around the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever that is, to take your finger out off the trigger and guide it outside for safety purposes, you would normally do that. I would normally do, unless the shot was a shot to see my finger off the trigger and to see me cock the gun.
And this one was with...
Right. And this was the shot, but he didn't have to cock the gun, right? Didn't he just say that there was no cocking? He just had to raise it? So he's contradicting himself now.
On the trigger.
My finger was on the trigger, but I didn't pull the trigger. I pulled the hammer back.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, it's a normal function of your hand when you're pulling something back, that your finger is typically going to follow that motion, since your index finger and your thumb kind of work in conjecture with each other.
But I've practiced quite a bit to not do that. My finger doesn't pull.
Pepper, a slice of banana. Get out the banana bread. Welcome aboard. Thanks for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who's listening. I really appreciate the discussion, because, like I said, I'm thinking about this case a lot. And this is very new for me to feel just, I keep using the word uncomfortable. That's the only word I can use. Uncomfortable. Unsold. I've never had so many witnesses that I felt were untrustworthy. I just, very weird trial. Very odd trial. I thought the first couple of days, slam dunk, no issues. Or very few. And I really question this evidence. I mean, if you can't prove that it was a part of it, or a part of this involuntary, that this evidence was significant, or more significant, and it more significant than what Sarah Zachary tampered with, just seems odd. An odd charge. And it seems thrown in to smear her.
The trigger.
When we don't know anything about, I mean, we'll see when it comes to Alec Baldwin. We'll see what happens in that trial. I know it doesn't really matter what it just makes me wonder. I don't know.
I pulled the hammer back almost all the way, and then I let it go, and that's when the round went off.
Mm-hmm.
The round went off because I partially cocked the gun, and the gun and the hammer hit the. I mean, that's my recollection. I almost never pulled the trigger until we're ready to shoot and everybody's cleared. I keep my hand away from the trigger, but and I showed her, and as it would be in the shot for the composition, but I again, the many times done this, I never pull the trigger till we roll the camera.
Right. Well, I mean, it makes sense, but I'm just saying if you're pulling something back, your index finger has to have some sort of leverage. So where you're not intentionally like pulling, it's probably still using some leverage because you're doing a motion with your thumb.
That I can't testify to because I don't know. I try, in fact, to do the opposite. I always try to do the opposite of that. I try to never pull the trigger on a gun.
He tries to, which you could infer that he doesn't always succeed. He tries to have proper gun safety etiquette, but it sounds like he didn't succeed here.
Until we roll the camera, no matter what. As a safety precaution, just be in the habit of always keep the gun pointing down. When they say cut, if we're going to do another angle, keep the gun pointing down. You know, whatever you're doing. I have a protocol of how I try to handle the gun. But I'm very, very. I can't believe these people are saying that they think somebody planted the bullet there. That's a really, really, really. That's a really, really powerful thing for them to suggest. Because I'm not saying it's deliberate, that someone deliberately wanted to cause.
Well, you also said that Helena was guiding you in the motions, that basically disparaging her and saying that she caused her own death.
Something like this. It takes it completely out of the world of the accidental, which I find hard to believe. I'd like to believe this was an accident, but anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, you'd also have to, make sure you plant that round exactly in a specific place.
Yeah, and also more importantly, you got to tee up that round in the gun itself.
Right.
How do you know she takes a box of rounds and some of them are blank and some of them are live, and she's going to put in the gun? That's going to end up, or what you're hoping is, I wouldn't say hoping, but what you're guessing is that if I've got the gun holds how many rounds? 5 or 6, the Colt?
6.
So if it holds 6 rounds and you load 6 rounds, you're going to assume that a bunch of blanks are going to go off, and then somebody's going to hit the ground with a bullet. Eccles, the other.
And we also know that dummy rounds were in short supply. Did they have enough dummy rounds to fill that firearm? Just a question.
Actor in the scene.
This is a crime circus presentation.
But all I know is that's surmising that someone else loaded the gun. Hannah loaded the gun.
Yeah.
Hannah is the only one that could load the gun. Hannah put the live round in the gun. I want to believe it was by mistake, but everybody's fairly certain it couldn't be any other answer. It just couldn't be.
Right. And I mean, and she's already admitted that she loaded the gun. That's not, she has already stated that she loaded it and that she's the only one that does. So, and that's kind of where it still is going to come down to.
Yeah.
At this point. But like I said,
you can hear the relief in his voice. Yeah. Oh, I'm off the hook.
I'm hoping that they agree to a secondary interview with her. But if not, I mean,
talk to your boss there, and if he wants to talk to me, because to be quite honest with you, I don't know how much longer I can go without sitting down to do an interview with someone and giving a real statement about this. So this is costing me jobs. I let go from the job yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren Michaels, the creator of Saturday Night Live, and one of my dearest friends, I say to you without hesitation that I was largely responsible after they had kind of set aside and put in the closet potential Kennedy Center honor for him. I am the one that invigorated that with him. I called the 2 men that are the current producers. Your predecessors were not really very focused on Lauren, and him. And I said, you're ever going to have a better show for the Kennedy Center than the show with Lauren because of all the comedy talent he's
Yeah, Kathy Scalise says, Roberta, I don't think he liked Helena. I don't think so either. I think there was tension. Certainly he doesn't like saying her name. And that's the real funny thing about listening to that Vermont interview is that his wife Hillary says her name is Helena. If you're gonna talk about her, you better use her name. But Alec Baldwin almost never uses her name. Only when he absolutely has to. Mostly it says her, she, and she had a really good reputation, and that might have given her some power on the set and some power to go up against him. We know people left the set. I believe something went on between those two. And there's that dinner. If Alec Baldwin's telling the truth that they went to dinner, what happened at that dinner? We never hear about that. Did she make him feel small? We know Alec Baldwin is so sensitive to criticism. Can't take the slight. Listen to the beginning of this call. Some guy didn't take a job and makes up a story according to him. Okay, we'll take his story as fact, just for the fun, just for the purposes of this thought experiment or whatever, this idea I'm trying to set forth. And he can't take it. He can't take it. He's steaming. He said that when he was roasted, it really hurt him. He knows what a roast is. He knows how hard people get beat up in those things. He still does it. But he told Howard Stern it really hurt his feelings. He can't take even a joke. Anything, the slightest ribbing, anything.
Created and discovered. And they were like flipped it. The next thing you know, they announced that Lauren is getting the Kennedy Center. And it's going to be all those people, Tina Fey and Will Ferrell and all the greats of Lauren's, 50-year. And I was supposed to be one of those people. Now they told me, I am to be responsible for him even getting the award by reinvigorating that idea. And they told me this is best of all.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Helena's life is over, but did you hear that Alec Baldwin couldn't take part in the 40-year anniversary show of Saturday Night Live? Is that what it was? No, it had to be longer than, what was it? 50? What was it? Gosh, it started in the 70s? Oh, who knows? Don't even start on the years. Whatever. How many years? Some celebration of Saturday Night Live. And he reinvigorated the show. He's the reason he's good. He's a good comic actor. I enjoy watching him. I'm not going to take that away from him.
Everyone, as I have seen, everyone has been sitting down and doing interviews with the media. So we cannot tell you that you can't talk to people. I can advise against it, and I can say, be careful what is said, because we can use all of that, which, you've been completely open with me and cooperative with everything. So, I don't suspect
I'm not going to say anything that I haven't said to you. In fact, I'm going to say to them where the bullet came from, how we ended up where we ended up with a woman that's killed. I said, that's something I don't have an answer for.
Right.
I've said privately, to them, I've given one or two friends of mine off the record comments. And I've said to them, I have abundant faith in the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department or anybody else who investigates that they're going to find out what happened.
Right now he's flattering her. So now he's admitting that the reason he did the Stephanopoulos interview is because he needed to start working again. Those 6 kids aren't going to feed him themselves. His $17 million Hamptons mansion, he isn't going to stay on by itself. That's the reason he did that interview. There, he's admitting it right here. I'm losing out on jobs. My career has been hurt by this. I would be so in. I don't think I'd be in the funny farm if this were me. I'd be so racked with guilt.
Abundant faith in that. The only thing I want to counter here is the idea that this set was a date set.
Right, which you are well within your right to do, and obviously there's been other peoples that have spoken out against it being an unsafe set. So, by all means, there's nothing wrong with you expressing anything regarding the set or the safety or anything of the sort like that. Again, the only thing I'm going to say, because you're seeing this with these other people, is the statements that they're releasing are very much contradicting what they gave us. So
I can guarantee you I won't contradict anything I've said to you.
Which in turn we can use.
Well, as I said, one of the great, as you well know, one of the great benefits of telling the truth is you never have to keep track of your story.
Absolutely, because then it doesn't get construed. If you're speaking to the truth, then there is no room for misinterpretation.
Listen, if I thought, if someone said to me, in your office or whatever, said, get a lawyer, because we really think you're going to get charged with something criminally, then I get a lawyer and
He did get a lawyer. He got a lawyer, and his lawyer worked out what they could take from his phone. He did get a lawyer. But here's where he's bragging that if he had any liability, that he would get a lawyer. But he did, right after this.
I would probably be so distraught I couldn't even put it into words. But because I know in my heart I'm not responsible for what happened to her. I'm not.
He's not. He's convinced himself. This is very much like the Adelsons. And I'm sure his wife, Hillary, they repeat this mantra back to each other. And they talk about how awful Hannah is and how unfortunate it was that Helena was so unsafety conscious that she guided him through these motions. Wow. No self-reflection. And here he is spouting off about other union strikes and supporting them. But when his union walks off, when his union people walk off, tough, I don't have the money. And I would love to know why the charges were dropped first and then re-brought back. And he certainly, for a while here in New York, there were rumors of him running for senator. He's very connected to the Democratic Party. The Baldwins have always been associated with the Democratic Party, although I think there is one Baldwin that has gotten born again. Am I right? And right? I don't know how associated he is anymore, but they used to be. That was the name. They were like a little bit like the Kennedys in that way. I mean, that's the only thing I can compare him to is when we had John F. Kennedy Jr. was so beloved in New York, so beloved, such a beloved figure. And Alec Baldwin, not so much, but two very connected people to the Democratic Party that lived in New York.
I'm not. I know 1,000% I'm not responsible for what happened to her. I'm devastated. I mean, if I told you the truth, we're up here in Vermont. We're going to buy a house. We're going to sell both of our homes on Long Island in New York. I'm going to retire. I'm not going to do this for a living anymore. I can't. You don't know anything about my business. You're in law enforcement.
Right.
You're the person who, when they do something wrong, you're the last person they want to see. And when you're the person that's the victim, you're the first they want to see. You live a very, very difficult, but ultimately a very narrow life of it's.
She lives a narrow, sheltered life. She hasn't been exposed to the theatrical wonderment of the movie business or whatever, the magical world of the movie business. She lives a narrow life. How condescending and awful is that?
Right and wrong. A lot of people pull a lot of shit on you, and you got to play a lot of, you got to work a lot of angles. I get it. I get how hard your job is. But in my job, it has nothing to do how good you are. It is a non-meritorious system. The greatest actors in the world, you'll never hear their name, ever. And some of the most famous and celebrated actors in the world are the shittiest actors in the whole business. And we all know that. We all kind of sit there and go, Bob so-and-so is really a shitty actor. He got really lucky. This is a business that requires a lot of luck.
So he's saying his luck has run out now? I thought he just said that his talent reinvigorated SNL, brought it back from almost going off the air.
And I'm 63 years old with 6 kids, and I can't rely on luck anymore. I can't do it to my family. Mm-hmm. I can't be sitting there on that pew. I'll tell you this, as God is my judge. I sat on that pew, and they called lunch.
That is a warning sign when people bring in God and start swearing to the Almighty. That is dangerous. And the other thing that always, when people say honestly or to tell you the truth, I always raise an eyebrow, like, not so sure what came after that.
I sat on that pew and I saw how well this was going. I said to myself, you know something? This has made me love again. I think I told you that. Yeah. This has made me love making again. And I didn't love movie making. Movie making was tedious. It was time consuming. I had to travel. All these things I didn't want to do with my kids. I mean, all I care about is my wife and my kids. That's all I care about. And I've been lucky that I've been able to keep.
I would say the true statement is all I care about is myself. I think he just added in this wife and kids as an afterthought. The one true thing he said, besides, hi, this is Alec Baldwin, in this conversation.
One toe in the pool here and make some money and support my family. Sometimes it's gone really well, and sometimes, so-so. But now, where your name, if your name becomes associated with something, nobody wants to work with you anymore. Nobody. You get brought up with you're Johnny Depp and you're guilty of spousal abuse. That hurts you. He was on the top of the pile.
Right.
Yeah, but he was also a maniac. Read the judge's decision and read Justice Nickel decision. Most people won't. He sunk his own ship, and he was also, speaking of things in baggies, he was also left the crew sitting there for days. That's not luck. That's not bad luck. That's not a false accusation. Alec Baldwin comes to the defense of all these kind of people. It's unreal.
They say that you did this, or you had a car accident, you were drunk, anything that makes you look like the villain. You've done something wrong. Not that you were unlucky, meaning you fell off a mountain or something.
Right. See, everybody's doing this kind of behavior. He's just unlucky. It's really a really good glimpse into his mindset as to what happened. It's like some supernatural unluck force came in, and a black cloud came in over his wonderful production. And you can hear it in the Stephanopoulos interview. The real tragedy is that he can't finish this wonderful film. Not that a life was taken and another person was injured and a whole bunch of people were traumatized, never be the same again. And there's a son without a mother and a husband without a wife and lots of friends of hers. And she'll never get to make her movies and her art, meaning Helena Hutchins' art, and practice her craft. It's all him. I mean, to say this with no thought of what he's saying is amazing. Who were his? And I hear that the Baldwin brothers, that there are other crazy Baldwins. Daniel Baldwin, I hear, is nuts like this too.
Nothing where it was an accident, blameless. Where you're construed as being to blame for something really, really heinous that F's up your whole career.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen it happen to many cops too.
Yeah. I just want you to know that next week we're going back to the city probably on Sunday, and we're going to be in the city next week to get a little bit of business done because we are trying to push forward with selling our properties there and getting out of there. So I don't.
Right, because he has to sell his property now because he has to settle all these. He had to settle a suit with Matthew Hutchins. So I'm going to leave it here. I've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. There's a little bit more. The link is in the description. Thank you, True Crime Circus, for getting this and for all of us to hear. I appreciate it. Link to everything I used is in the description of the episode. I think I'm going to add day 8 link from Law and Crime. Thank you, Law and Crime, for doing that. And please hit the thumbs up. Leave me a comment, especially with this case. I really appreciate your insight. Tell me what you're thinking about, how you're seeing it. I get a lot out of those comments. And I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody.